She was forged for war, built to kill, not to feel. But when a human kissed her steel lips, the monster moaned and remembered she was once a woman. This is The Human Kissed the Machine, and what followed was nothing short of rebirth. Ash drifted through the air like dying snowflakes, settling over the blackened bones of what had once been the proud capital of Aerodani. Towers of glass and silver lay broken, their skeletal frames jutting into the crimson haze like the ribs of a dead god. The wind howled through the ruins, carrying the faint hum of still-active defense grids, ghosts of a civilization that refused to admit it had already died. Unit 7 stood motionless at the edge of what used to be the central plaza, her armor glinting faintly beneath the blood-red sky. To anyone watching, she looked less like a soldier and more like a statue sculpted from grief and vengeance. Along her spine, a series of luminous ports pulsed in rhythmic blue, the only sign that something alive still existed beneath the matte black combat shell. Once her name had been Nixara Viel, daughter of Counselor Viel, Minister of Diplomacy. She had laughed once, sung once, dreamed once. But that was before the scourge came, before the skies turned black with the burning of 1,000 colonies, before the males of her species vanished into extinction, victims of a biological weapon that unmade half their genome in a single breath of wind. When the last Aerodani fleet fell, their leaders made the choice no species should ever make. They built the Valkyrie program. They took their finest daughters, their brightest minds, and stripped them bare of everything that made them human, or whatever word passed for human among the Aerodani. Flesh became alloy. Nerves became conduits. Souls became data. Now Nixara Viel no longer existed. There was only Unit 7, efficient, unfeeling, and lethal. "Perimeter secure, Commander," she said through her helmet's vocoder, her voice filtered to a tone flat and emotionless. No scourge signatures detected within 5 kilometers. The reply came in a burst of static. "Acknowledge 7. Return to base. The human delegation arrives in 2 hours." Commander Alara's voice was brisk, clipped, metallic. Even their leaders had started to sound like their machines. Humans. The word flickered in the back of Nixara's memory banks, dragging faint associations with old archives images of soft-skinned bipeds from a distant blue world. Unexpected allies, unpredictable, powerful. They had entered this sector 3 months ago, cutting through scourge formations with brutal efficiency. Their technology resisted the bioweapons that had crippled so many others. Now they wanted an alliance. Her servos hummed as she turned toward the horizon. Through the ash and air, faint contrails streaked the sky, the incoming fleet of Earth's Defense Force. Their ships gleamed silver and white, pure and alien, untouched by Aerodani's decay. As she began her run back to the compound, the ground trembled faintly under the impact of distant artillery. Her augmented legs carried her at 40 kilometers per hour, each stride precise, calculated, flawless. The armor wasn't merely protection, it was her. Nanofilaments threaded through her muscles, carbon reinforcements fused with bone neural links, soldered directly into her brainstem. The transformation had been agony, every nerve screaming as steel replaced flesh. But pain had been irrelevant. Pain was a luxury of the living. The Valkyries had become the dead, who still moved. What wasn't irrelevant was what they had taken her name, her voice, her emotions. The neural dampeners saw to that, ensuring that fear, hesitation, compassion, mercy, everything that once made Nixara Viel a person was silenced. Efficient killing machines couldn't afford to feel. The compound loomed ahead, a vast complex of concrete domes and shielded hangars. Its blast doors parted at her approach, their edges glowing faintly from constant use. Inside, civilians scurried through the corridors like pale ghosts, their eyes flicking toward her and then quickly away. Gratitude, pity, fear all at once. To them, the Valkyries were saviors and abominations in equal measure. 7. Commander Alara's voice crackled again. "Report to medical for inspection." "Acknowledged," she replied, her tone as empty as the hall she marched through. The medical bay smelled of antiseptic and recycled air. Cold metallic light reflected off sterile walls. Dr. Thala, one of the few remaining scientists not yet consumed by exhaustion, approached with a diagnostic scanner in trembling hands. Her eyes darted between the monitor and Nixara's towering form. "Remove your helmet, please," Thela said softly. Hissing seals released, and the helmet detached. Nixara's face was revealed, not the flawless gray skin of Aerodani nobility anymore, but a map of faint metallic lines tracing from temples to jaw, where the ports integrated with her nervous system. Her eyes, once pale silver, now glowed faintly with circuitry rings, mechanical pupils dilating under the bay's light. Any system anomalies to report, negative. An emotional bleed-through, another pause. The question was routine, but the subtext wasn't. Any sign of failing dampeners meant immediate reconditioning, memory erasure, neural reset, perhaps worse. Negative, Nixara repeated. But for a moment, just a flicker in her mind, an image surfaced, sunlight filtering through violet leaves. Her father's voice reciting old Earth poems in translation. The stars are not lost, daughter, only waiting. She suppressed the image instantly, forcing the neural dampeners to pulse, erasing the warmth that had begun to rise in her chest. Dr. Thala's scanner emitted a final chime. "Acceptable," she said at last. Then more quietly, "The humans. They're not what we expected. Be prepared." Before Nixara could respond, alarms blared throughout the compound. Red lights washed over white walls. "All units to defensive positions," Alara's command echoed. "Scourge breach in Sector 4. Helmet-sealed plasma rifle forming from her left arm. Unit 7 sprinted toward the alarm source. The world around her blurred into motion, AI-assisted targeting painting red outlines across her vision. The Scourge weren't supposed to be this close. How had they found them now, mere hours before the humans arrived? The walls of Sector 4 shook under the impact of bioplasma fire. She rounded a corner to find 3 Valkyries locked in close combat, with a Scourge infiltration squad, sleek chitinous forms darting between explosions, claws slicing through armor. Without hesitation, she raised her arm. Plates shifted. The plasma cannon roared. 2 Scourge soldiers evaporated in light. Then the wall behind the last creature exploded inward. Through the dust and fire, a figure stepped forward, massive, armored, unfamiliar. The exosuit was bulkier than any Aerodani tech, marked with a faded blue insignia of Earth. A human. He moved with startling grace, for his size rifle spitting hypersonic rounds that shredded the remaining Scourge in seconds. When the smoke cleared, he lowered his weapon and retracted his helmet. Tan skin, short black hair, eyes the color of oceans she had never seen. "Hope I'm not interrupting," he said, a grin ghosting across his lips. "Captain Stephen Steele, Earth Defense Force. Looks like we arrived just in time for the party." Something flickered deep within Nixara's neural core, not emotion, not yet, but the ghost of it. "Unit 7, she replied mechanically. "You were expected at the landing pad, Captain Steele." He shrugged, stepping over a Scourge corpse, picked up their heat signatures on approach, figured we'd introduce ourselves properly. His gaze drifted to her faceplate. "You weren't always like this, were you?" The question hit harder than any weapon. For a moment, the dampeners faltered. A single heartbeat, an echo of fear of memory. She forced it down. "Irrelevant," she said flatly. Steele tilted his head, studying her. "I disagree," he said quietly, "but we can discuss philosophy later." As he walked past her, Nixara turned her head, following his movement with something her programming didn't recognize. Interest. For the first time in 5 years, the machine remembered what it felt like to wonder. The firestorm over Sector 4 faded into silence, leaving only drifting ash and the hiss of cooling armor. Captain Stephen Steele stood among the carnage, the muzzle of his rifle still smoking. His movements were efficient, but not mechanical. There was rhythm in the way he reloaded, fluidity in how he moved through death. Nixara's sensors tracked him, automatically cataloging every motion. Heart rate 72 BPM, adrenaline elevated, heat signature stable. Everything about him should have been ordinary flesh and blood. Yet he moved like someone who had stared into the void and decided to walk straight through it. Humans, she thought, were supposed to be reckless, primitive, fragile. And yet this one had survived a Scourge ambush that would have annihilated an entire Aerodani squad. Steele glanced at her again, blue eyes narrowing slightly. "Do your people always look this serious?" "I am not my people," Nixara said flatly. "I am a weapon." Steele slung his rifle across his back. "Yeah, I can tell. but every weapon has a maker and a reason. His words struck something deep in her neural core, something that trembled like a memory trying to break through the static. But before she could respond, Commander Alara's voice cracked through her comms. All units stand down. Human team secured. Sector 4 clear. Return to base. Steele's helmet folded back into place. Guess that's our cue. Lead the way, Unit 7. He said the designation with an edge of sarcasm that her sensors couldn't quantify. She turned sharply, ignoring the tone, but his footsteps followed close behind as they made their way through the ruined corridors. Inside the compound, tension hung like static in the air. Eridani civilians pressed themselves against walls as the humans walked by steel and flesh. Alien and familiar, side by side. Soldiers whispered. Eyes darted. At the main hall, Commander Alara awaited them, her silver armor gleaming under artificial lights. Her expression was sharp, unreadable. Captain Steele, she greeted curtly. Your intervention was efficient. Always aim to please, he said, offering a brief salute. Hope we didn't ruin the decor. Alara's eyes flicked to Nixara. Unit 7, escort the human delegation to the command chamber. Yes, Commander. Steele smirked as he fell into step beside her. So this is what passes for hospitality on Eridani. She ignored him. The scourge nearly breached our perimeter. Your arrival was timely. Timely sounds better than lucky, so I'll take it, Steele replied. Your people are impressive. Grim as hell, but impressive. Her systems flagged an anomaly, slight elevation in internal temperature. She ran diagnostics twice before realizing it wasn't a malfunction. It was something else. Embarrassment. Or maybe irritation. She wasn't sure anymore. The command chamber was vast, its ceiling rising like the inside of a cathedral, a painful reminder of the civilization Eridani had once been. Ornate walls now lined with cables and holographic projectors. The human delegation waited around a long obsidian table. Admiral Harrington, 2 aides, and 2 security officers in sleek angular armor. Steele took a seat beside his superior while Nixara and 3 other Valkyries stood guard like statues along the wall. The meeting began with formalities, but beneath the surface ran a current of mutual suspicion. The Scourge represents a threat to all sentient life in this sector, Admiral Harrington said. We propose a tactical alliance, shared intelligence, combined fleet operations. Commander Alara's tone was polite but cold. We have fought the Scourge for 7 years. You arrived 3 months ago and suggest cooperation, as if we are pupils in your academy. We offer survival, Commander Harrington countered, and we don't ask for worship, just coordination. Nixara's optics registered micro-tremors in Alara's hands, barely perceptible but real. The humans were not as easily dominated as the Council expected. As the debate raged, Steele leaned slightly toward her. He didn't speak aloud, only whispered low enough that her enhanced hearing caught it. Do you ever get tired of standing that still? Stillness optimizes focus, she replied. Ever tried not optimizing for once? His tone was teasing, but his gaze was steady, unafraid, curious. He wasn't looking at her armor. He was looking through it. Her neural dampeners pulsed warningly. Emotional anomaly detected. She forced her breathing into mechanical precision, ignoring the voice in her head that whispered, "He's not afraid of you." When the meeting ended, Alara gave a series of clipped orders. Unit 7 escort the humans to their assigned quarters. Yes, Commander. The delegation filed out their boots, echoing against the polished floor. Steele lingered slightly behind, falling into step beside her once more. You know, he said conversationally, I read about your people before we came. Eridani used to be diplomats, artists, explorers, not walking tanks. She didn't reply. So what happened? She stopped abruptly. The Scourge happened. Steele's face softened, the easy humor fading. I'm sorry, I didn't mean... Your apology's unnecessary, she cut him off. We made our choice. We became what survival required. He studied her for a moment, then nodded slowly. And what did it cost you? Her footsteps resumed, mechanical and precise. Everything. They walked in silence after that, the hum of the compound the only sound between them. But when they reached the quarters assigned to the humans, Steele didn't enter immediately. Instead, he turned to her. Your commander called you Unit 7, but Dr. Thala called you by another name, didn't she, Nixara? Her systems froze. That designation is decommissioned. Not to me, Steele said. His voice was low, steady. I'd like to call you by your name, if you'll let me. Something flickered again, faint, dangerous. She couldn't describe it, only feel it, a pulse of memory, a breath of warmth that had no place inside her. Why, she asked at last. Steele looked at her with those unshakable ocean eyes. Because I've seen what happens when people start thinking of themselves as weapons instead of beings. It never ends well. Her fingers twitched against her thigh. It took her a full 2 seconds to realize she was clenching her hand, a reflex she hadn't exhibited in 5 years. Protocol forbids unauthorized familiarity between delegates and host personnel, she said. Steele's grin returned, though softer this time. Good thing I've never been great with protocol. He stepped closer, not enough to threaten, but enough to make her sensors spike. If you ever remember who you were, Nixara Viel, I hope you'll tell me what she was like. She opened her mouth to reply, but no words came. Her systems, for the briefest instant, glitched, flickering lights, skipped neural pings. Steele noticed. His brow furrowed. You okay? I am functioning within parameters, she said automatically. But her voice sounded wrong even to herself, too human, too alive. He gave her a long look, then nodded and entered his quarters. The door hissed shut behind him. Nixara remained standing there for several seconds longer than protocol required. She didn't know why. Her system should have moved her back to standby position. Instead, she stared at the closed door, replaying his words again and again. Because I've seen what happens when people start thinking of themselves as weapons instead of beings. The phrase embedded itself in her core memory, bypassing every firewall. When she finally turned to leave, she caught her reflection in the polished wall. Metallic lines tracing her face, eyes glowing with circuitry, mouth drawn in a perfect neutral line. And yet, behind that mask, something was beginning to stir, something dangerous, something alive. That night, if one could call it night, beneath the compound's artificial skies, Nixara stood alone in the armory. The world outside was silent, save for the faint hum of machinery. She stared at her own reflection in the obsidian glass of the weapon racks. For the first time, she wondered what she looked like to others. A monster, a savior, or just another broken promise of science. Her father's voice surfaced, faint, distorted, like an echo from a dream she wasn't supposed to remember. The stars are not lost, daughter, only waiting. Nixara blinked. The memory flickered out. She ran a diagnostic, searching for the source of the auditory hallucination, none detected. And yet when she turned away from the mirror, she could have sworn she heard another voice, deeper, human, Steele's voice. If being human means feeling pain, he'd said earlier, half in jest, then I'd rather bleed than be perfect. Bleed. The word lingered in her mind long after the lights dimmed. The corridors of the compound were quieter than usual the following night. Even the machines seemed to sense the shift in the air. Nixara moved soundlessly through the dim halls, her armor absorbing the muted glow of emergency lighting. She had been summoned to the medical sector again for recalibration, but the command had been strangely vague. No details, no diagnostics attached. She entered the sterile chamber to find Dr. Thala waiting. The scientist looked pale, tired, her hands trembling as she gestured toward a console. Commander Alara wants an inspection before the next coordination meeting, she said, eyes darting toward the door. You've been exhibiting irregular readings. Define irregular, Nixara said flatly. Thala hesitated. Neural fluctuations, emotional resonance spikes. Nixara's internal systems ran an instant check. She already knew the answer: fluctuations caused by the conversation with Captain Steele. It wasn't malfunction, it was memory. I am operational, she said. Thala gave a faint, almost human smile. Operational isn't the same as alive, Nixara. Before Nixara could answer, the compound lights flickered. A voice came through the comms, low and calm. This is Captain Steele. You're not being recalled for inspection, are you? Her optics widened. How did you access this channel? I told you I'm bad with protocol, he replied. Meet me in the East Maintenance Bay, alone. Thala's expression froze. What's happening? Nixara hesitated. Protocol dictated she report the breach immediately. Instead, she said, continue monitoring. I will investigate the interference. And before Thala could respond, Nixara was gone. The maintenance bay was empty, except for crates of dismantled drones and the faint hum of power conduits. The metallic scent of ozone filled the air. Nixara entered cautiously, her steps measured her weapon systems half-primed. Steele was waiting near a workbench, his armor partially disengaged. In his hand, he held a small, circular device, no bigger than a coin, pulsing with soft blue light. "You disobeyed a direct order," she said. He looked up calm. "I prefer to call it an unscheduled meeting." She took a step closer, analyzing the device. "That technology isn't Aerodani. It's Terran," he confirmed. "A neural dampener disruptor. Non-lethal, temporary." Her systems flagged the words neural dampener. A pulse of defensive code rippled through her circuits. "Why are you showing this to me?" Steele's voice softened. "Because I want to give you something your commanders won't." "What is that?" He took a slow breath. "A choice." The word hung in the air, heavy and dangerous. For the first time, Nixara's internal algorithms hesitated. No immediate counter-argument, no program denial. Just the hum of the circuits and the faint quickened rhythm of something deeper. Steele approached, holding the device out to her. "Just for a few minutes," he said. "It won't hurt you. It'll just remove the wall between you and yourself." "Remove the wall." Her voice sounded almost human when she repeated it. He nodded. "You said the Scourge took everything from your people. Maybe it's time someone gave something back." She stared at the device. Protocol screamed inside her mind, warning of sedition, corruption, loss of control. But beneath those warnings, something older whispered, a flicker of the girl who once played music under violet trees. "Why would you do this?" "Because when I look at you," Steele said quietly, "I don't see a weapon. I see someone trapped. Someone who deserves the dignity of remembering what it feels like to be free." Her systems trembled under a flood of contradictory commands. "If you are lying, then you can kill me," he interrupted. "But I'm not." For a long moment, neither moved. Then slowly she removed her helmet. The hiss of decompressing seals echoed through the bay. Her face emerged from the shell, metallic veins glinting under cold light, eyes gray and luminous. Steele's breath caught. "You're beautiful," he said, not as flattery but as truth. Her processor stumbled, trying to categorize the word beautiful. It didn't fit into any functional subroutine. "Activate it," she whispered. He stepped closer, raising the device. "It might hurt." "I don't feel pain." He gave her a look. "That's the problem." He pressed the device gently against the base of her neck. A hum filled the air, soft at first, then rising into a high crystalline frequency. Nixara gasped as energy surged through her neural pathways. Her vision fractured into shards of color-coded memory. She fell to her knees, clutching at the floor. Sparks danced across her armor as dormant circuits reignited. Images flooded in her mother's voice, her father's laughter, the scent of rain on Aerodani stone. Steele dropped beside her, catching her shoulders as she convulsed. "Easy," he murmured. "Breathe, you're safe." She choked out a sound between a sob and a laugh. "I can't stop it." "It's okay, don't fight it." Tears, real saline. Tears streamed down her face, carving paths through the metallic tracings on her skin. "They're all gone," she whispered. "My family. My world. Everything I was." Steele's hand tightened around hers. "Not everything. You're still here, Nixara." The sound of her name in his voice broke something open inside her. She looked at him. Really looked. The rough stubble on his jaw, the warmth of his breath, the concern in his eyes. He wasn't just a soldier. He was a person who refused to see her as anything less than one too. "I shouldn't feel this," she said. "It's inefficient." He smiled faintly. "Yeah, feelings tend to be, but they're what make life worth the chaos." Her systems flickered again, data streams fluctuating as emotion overrode control. She reached out her hand, trembling as it brushed his face. Warmth, softness, sensation. The texture of skin instead of metal. "I remember this," she whispered. "Touch." He turned his head slightly, pressing his cheek against her palm. "Then remember it as long as you can." The moment stretched, fragile, infinite. Their eyes met. For once, she didn't think in algorithms or tactics. She didn't think at all. She simply felt. And then she kissed him. It was clumsy, hesitant, electric. The contact triggered a cascade of neural feedback, a surge of sensory overload, so intense her systems faltered. Her HUD flashed, red neural dampener offline. Emotional core reactivated. But she didn't care. For the first time since the war began, she was no longer a machine. When the hum of the disruptor faded, she pulled back, breathing hard. Her chest rose and fell in uneven rhythms. She was trembling, not from weakness, but from the flood of life inside her. Steele brushed a strand of silver hair from her face. How do you feel? She laughed weakly, a raw human sound. Overwhelmed, terrified, alive. He smiled. Good, that's how it starts. For a few minutes they sat in silence, her head resting against his shoulder. No words, no commands, no war. Just two beings in the quiet aftermath of rediscovery. But then the silence fractured. A harsh alarm blared through her neural interface. Warning: neural dampener efficiency at 68%. System instability imminent. Nick Sara's eyes widened. The system's fighting back. It's trying to reassert control. Steele reached for the disruptor, but the device had burned out, its casing cracked and smoking. Can you stop it? She shook her head. Not without reconditioning equipment. They'll detect the irregularity. They'll come for me. Then we'll find another way. You don't understand, she said, rising to her feet. Her voice trembled, not mechanically but emotionally. If they recondition me, they'll erase everything, this memory, this moment you. Steele stepped forward. Then we make sure they can't. He placed a hand over her chest plate, where beneath the armor her heart still beat. Whatever happens next, remember this. You are not a weapon. You are Nick Sara VL. And that's something no one can erase. Her breath hitched. You speak as if you believe that. I do. Outside, sirens began to howl the compound, alerting to a system breach. Nick Sara turned toward the door armor, shifting back into combat mode. Steele loaded his rifle. So what now? Her visor sealed shut, voice returning to its cold metallic modulation, but only on the surface. Now, Captain Steele, we survive. As they stepped into the corridor bathed in red light, the machine that had been Unit 7 moved like a storm, given flesh. Her pulse welled, her mind alive, and her heart, for the first time in years, hers again. The alarm echoed through the steel corridors like a heartbeat gone mad. Red light pulsed across the compound walls, bathing everything in the color of blood. Nick Sara sprinted through the hallways, her armor reassembling seamlessly around her as combat routines came online. Inside her, skull warning screamed: neural dampener integrity, 62%, 58%, 53%. She could feel it, the conflict between her programming and her reawakened self. Every breath, every thought now came with a spike of pain. Her systems weren't built to feel, to remember, to want. Through her internal comms, Commander Alara's voice sliced through the chaos. Unit 7 report status. You are not at your assigned post. Nick Sara forced her tone to remain flat, neutral, mechanical. Minor calibration issue. Resolving now. Report to medical immediately. Your telemetry shows anomalies. Acknowledge, she lied. She cut the channel before Alara could reply. Her steps turned instead toward the maintenance wing. Steele's voice crackled through a private frequency she hadn't even known she possessed. Nick Sara, where are you? The medical team's looking for you. Dr. Thala is talking about something called emotional contamination and full reset protocols. Reset, she whispered. The word chilled her circuits more than any weapon. Yeah, sounds like they're planning to wipe you back to zero. She leaned against the cold wall, her breath coming in shuttered bursts. They want to erase me. Again. Not if we stop them, Steele said. You need to move. Now. Her optics dimmed for a moment. Not if we stop them. The word we hit her harder than she expected. No one had spoken of her as part of a we in years. I can't go to medical, she said. They'll sedate me, strip the systems, and recondition whatever's left. But if I hide, you can't hide forever. The scourge are still out there, and your commander's not exactly subtle about her paranoia. He was right. The compound wasn't safe. Not anymore. She reached the armory, overriding the biometric lock with a code she wasn't supposed to know, one her father had whispered to her years ago. Inside, the chamber was silent but alive with faint hums, racks of plasma rifles, kinetic blades, shield generators, tools of extinction. She stripped her weapon systems from the wall and loaded an extra neural stabilizer patch. The thin silver device shimmered like liquid mercury. When she pressed it against the integration port on her neck, her vision cleared for a moment. Neural dampener efficiency, 72%. Temporary stabilization achieved. A breath, a fragile reprieve. Then Steele's voice again, quieter this time, filled with urgency. They know something's wrong with your systems. You can't stay there. What are they saying? That the Valkyries are showing signs of emotional contamination. That some of you might be compromised. Compromise, she echoed bitterly. They call it contamination when it's just feeling. Nixara listened to mine. The Scourge Scouts are moving toward your sector. This isn't random. Someone's leaking your position. Her hands tightened on her weapon. Alara, she whispered. She's hiding something. Then we find out what. Nixara made her way down a disused corridor, one of the many tunnels that connected the compound to the older structures of the city beneath. Here the walls were cracked, the air thick with dust and memory. Her HUD flickered again, 52%, 49%. As she moved, a strange echo rippled through her thoughts, not static, not malfunction. A voice, male, faint, almost familiar. Nixara. She froze. Who's there? No response. Only the sound of her own breathing echoing back at her. She ran another diagnostic, no external signal, detected no comms frequency active. Daughter. The voice came again, stronger this time, reverberating through the neural channels that linked her mind to the armor. Her grip on the rifle faltered. That's impossible. You can hear me now. The dampeners are failing. I've been here all along. Her knees buckled as the realization hit. The timbre of the voice, the same warmth, the same cadence. Father, she whispered. Yes, I'm sorry, Nixara. I wanted to protect you. I fought them, but they used me. Used all of us. Her vision blurred. The walls seemed to close in around her. They told us you were all gone. That the males, that you died. No, they didn't kill us. They uploaded us. Our consciousness, our neural patterns, they integrated them into the Valkyrie system. Into you. The words felt like a blade through her mind. You're saying every Valkyrie carries a mind, a man, a father, a brother, trapped inside, silenced by the dampeners. The world spun. She fell to her knees, the rifle clattering beside her. Her systems screamed alarms, but none of them could compete with the terror rising inside her. I watched you suffer. Her father's voice continued, trembling with sorrow. I tried to reach you, but the suppression was absolute, until now. Her memories fragmented, corrupted, snapped into focus. The other Valkyries who had gone rogue. Their screams. There are voices inside us they'd cried before being dragged away. Everyone thought it was madness. It wasn't madness, it was memory. Dear gods, she whispered. We were never soldiers. We were prisons. A sound echoed at the far end of the corridor, footsteps heavy and deliberate. She snatched up her rifle and turned every nerve on edge. Commander Alara stepped out of the shadows, her white armor gleaming under the emergency lights. Unit 7, she said evenly. You've been busy. Nixara's rifle rose. You lied to us. Alara's expression didn't change. You wouldn't have survived if we hadn't. You turned us into abominations. Into saviors, Alara corrected coldly. The Scourge destroyed our future. The Valkyrie program was the only path left. The integration of male consciousness ensured tactical brilliance and species preservation. You used our fathers as templates, and they live on through you, Alara said simply. That is more than most civilizations can claim. Alive, Nixara spat. You call this living? Alara's visor flickered, revealing her eyes calm detached. Your emotional instability proves the danger of unchecked sentimentality. Report to reconditioning. No. Alara tilted her head. Then I'll have you escorted. Before Nixara could react, the commander moved faster than expected. Her armor enhanced beyond regulation specs. The two collided with the force of thunder. Plasma blades clashed their edges, hissing through the red haze. Nixara fought like a storm unbound, but Alara's precision was clinical. Every strike designed to subdue, not kill. Daughter, her father's voice cried inside her. She'll erase you. I know, she shouted aloud, slamming her blade against Alara's. Sparks flew. Alara twisted, slamming a blow into Nixara's side. Systems flared. Pain, not synthetic but real, shot through her nerves. Override her control link, her father urged. Channel me through the interface. She obeyed instinctively. For a moment, their minds intertwined, her consciousness and her father's merging through the neural lattice. Energy surged through her armor, blue light flooding her veins. Alara staggered back. What? What have you done? I remembered, Nixara said. Her voice had changed, two tones layered into one, hers and his. and I'm not your weapon anymore. She unleashed the charge, a concussive blast of raw neural energy that sent Alara crashing through a wall. Smoke filled the corridor. When it cleared, Alara was gone. Nixara collapsed, her systems flickering. Neural dampener efficiency, 41%, 35%. Steele's voice broke through the comms again, frantic. Nixara, talk to me. What's happening? Her breath came in ragged gasps. They lied to us, Stephen. The Valkyries were built from the dead, from our own fathers. Jesus, he whispered. Then we have to stop them. She looked up, eyes blazing through her cracked visor. No, Stephen, we have to free them. The emergency sirens wailed again, but this time their rhythm felt different, less like alarm, more like heartbeat. The compound itself seemed alive, pulsing in time with her failing systems. Her father's voice spoke softly now, fading but proud. You've done what I could not. You've remembered. I can't do this without you. You can, you must. And then his voice was gone, leaving her with silence, pain, and the fragile spark of purpose burning brighter than ever. She rose unsteadily, gripping her weapon, staring down the empty corridor that led toward the central labs, toward the truth. And as she began to walk, one thought crystallized inside her, sharper than any blade. They had turned her into a monster to win a war. Now she would become the monster that ended it. The corridors were burning. Flames licked along the metal walls, smoke curling through broken vents like the breath of something ancient waking up. The air tasted of ozone, iron, and rebellion. Nixara staggered through the chaos, plasma rifle in one hand. Blood, her blood, not coolant, running down her side. Her body was failing, but her mind had never been clearer. Every step echoed with the words she'd whispered to Steele only hours ago. We have to free them. Over the comms, his voice was tight, urgent. You've got patrols converging on you from the west corridors. The whole base is on lockdown. I'm not hiding anymore, she said. You don't have to do this alone. I was never alone, she answered, her tone almost serene. I just didn't know it. The voice of her father, faint now, but steady, murmured in her mind. Find the central core. That's where they keep the neural archives. That's where they imprisoned us. Nixara moved deeper into the heart of the compound. The walls here pulse faintly with blue light, the data veins of the Valkyrie network carrying the digitized ghosts of the Aerodani dead. Each hum, each vibration was a whisper, voices calling, pleading, remembering. The deeper she went, the stronger the pressure became, psychic, almost spiritual. Her HUD blurred with interference. Every step triggered flashes of faces, voices, laughter, all those who had been absorbed into the system. She stumbled, bracing herself against the wall as her father's voice guided her. They're not lost, daughter. They're waiting. The door ahead loomed like the mouth of a tomb. Labeled in bright white letters, Valkyrie Central Processing Core. Her hand hovered over the biometric scanner, but before she could move, a sound cut through the stillness, a hiss of shifting metal. Commander Alara stepped from the Shadow's armor, scorched but unbroken, her blade humming with static light. I warned you what would happen if you resisted, she said calmly. Nixara leveled her rifle. You enslaved them. I preserved us, Alara countered. Without the integration project, Aerodani would have gone extinct. You call this survival? Alara's gaze was unflinching. Existence is preferable to extinction. Not when it costs your soul. Alara's expression hardened. You think like a human now. That makes you dangerous. Then maybe it's time you learned what danger really means. They clashed, plasma blade against pulse rifle, energy arcing like lightning. Sparks cascaded across the floor. Alara fought with calculated precision, each strike designed to cripple, not kill. Nixara fought with fury, fluid and wild, every movement born of something Alara could never quantify: emotion. The fight spilled into the core chamber, where massive crystalline columns reached toward the ceiling, pulsing with blue light. Each one held thousands of consciousnesses, their memories, their dreams, their pain. Alara slashed the blade, grazing Nixara's chest plate. You're malfunctioning, 7. I should have terminated you the moment you began to remember. Then you should have done it sooner. Nixara triggered her wrist amid a blinding pulse of energy that hurled Alara backward into one of the crystalline pillars. The impact fractured the containment field. A surge of energy flooded the room, thousands of voices screaming at once. Alara screamed too, clutching her head. You fool, you'll destabilize the network. Maybe that's the point. The lights flickered. Systems failed. Across the compound, other Valkyries froze mid-combat, their eyes flaring with raw data. Nixara's pulse echoed through the network like a heartbeat synchronizing their frequencies. Her voice carried over the comms, calm, resolute. Sisters, you were told you were soldiers. You were told you were empty. That was a lie. Images flashed in their minds, memories of laughter of children, of faces long erased. You are not weapons. You are not ghosts. You are us. And it's time to wake up. The compound erupted in chaos. Reconditioned Valkyries turned their weapons on the command center. Their movements erratic at first, then coordinated, each one following a pulse that wasn't command code but instinct. Freedom. Meanwhile, Steel and his human squad breached the eastern hangar, moving in formation under fire. The ceiling rumbled as the Valkyrie revolt tore through the facility. Steel shouted into the comms, "Nixara, what the hell is happening?" "I'm rewriting the system." Her voice came back steady but distant. "I'm freeing them. You're going to blow the entire grid, then it will finally mean something." Steel cursed, ducking behind cover as a blast rocked the hangar. His squad returned fire against Scourge infiltrators that had somehow slipped through the chaos. The battle was collapsing into madness. He pushed through overriding sealed blast doors, forcing his way toward the core chamber. "Hold on, Nixara. I'm coming to you." Inside the core, Alara struggled to her feet, face illuminated by the flickering blue of the collapsing archives. "You think this is freedom?" she hissed. "Without control, they'll lose themselves. The network will consume them. Then they'll die as themselves," Nixara said, voice trembling, but fierce. "Not as your puppets." Alara lunged again, blade raised. This time Nixara didn't dodge, she caught the blade in her bare hand. The heat seared her flesh, but she didn't let go. With her other hand, she plunged a neural injector directly into Alara's chest plate. A burst of data energy exploded between them. For an instant, their minds connected. Nixara saw through Alara's memories. The truth hit like lightning. Alara had made a pact with the Scourge, not submission symbiosis. She had promised them integration, the merging of species mind into hive flesh into code. The Valkyrie project wasn't a defense, it was the prototype for assimilation. Alara's voice screamed in Nixara's mind, fractured and furious. "We were meant to evolve, to transcend biology." "No," Nixara whispered through the link, "you were meant to control it." She ripped the injector free. Alara fell to her knees, her systems flickering out. Steel burst into the chamber just as the central core began to overload. The light was unbearable columns, fracturing thousands of stored minds, unraveling into raw energy. He found her standing at the heart of it all, the storm swirling around her. "Nixara," he shouted, fighting through the current. "You have to shut it down." "I can't," she said, her voice echoing through both sound and data. "If I do, they stay trapped." "You'll die, maybe, but they'll live. Free." He reached her, grabbing her shoulders. "We can find another way." Her eyes, glowing bright blue, met his. "You taught me what it means to feel, Stephen. Now I know what it means to choose." She turned, driving her hand into the control nexus. Energy roared through her, the network exploding outward in waves of light. Across the compound, Valkyries screamed as the dampeners shattered, some collapsing, others awakening fully. Steel held on to her as the storm tore around them. "Nixara." Her voice came through the chaos, soft but clear. "Tell them we were never machines." And then the light consumed everything. When the storm faded, the compound was silent. Half the facility was gone. The air was thick with smoke and static. Steel woke amid the ruins, his armor scorched. He coughed, pulling himself upright. The central core was destroyed, shattered columns still glowing faintly, releasing wisps of data into the air like fireflies. In the center of the wreckage, a figure knelt amid the ash, her armor blackened, her body motionless. "Nixara," he whispered, stumbling toward her. Her head lifted weakly. Beneath the cracked visor, faint light glowed in her eyes. "The voices, they're quiet now," she murmured. "They're free." He reached her, pulling her into his arms. "You did it." She smiled faintly, a trace of silver blood at the corner of her lips. "You said choice was what made us human." He nodded, unable to speak. Her hand rose to fingertips, brushing his face one last time. "Then I finally am." Her eyes dimmed, the glow faded, and around them the freed Valkyries stood in silent vigil, sisters reborn from potent memory witnesses, to one of their own choosing to die as a person, not a weapon. Outside the dawn broke over Aerodani for the first time in years, soft light spilling across the ruined city. For a moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. Captain Stephen Steele stood at the edge of the smoking horizon, holding her insignia Unit 7, now just a fragment of metal in his hand. "She was never your weapon," he whispered. "She was your redemption." For 3 days after the blast, Aerodani's skies burned with the color of morning. Ash drifted through the atmosphere like gray snow, and orbiting above human and Aerodani ships circled the planet scanning for signs of life. Captain Stephen Steele hadn't slept since the explosion. His voice had gone hoarse from calling her name across static frequencies. "Nixara, if you can hear me, please respond." Nothing, just silence. Around him, the human medical ship Erebus functioned like a war hospital, and refugee center combined rows of Valkyries now freed from control lay in recovery pods, their systems slowly stabilizing under human supervision. Some were alive, others were ghosts and metal-free but too damaged to return. Steele stood beside one of the pods as Dr. Keller briefed him. "She stabilized the core long enough for the release sequence to finish," Keller said quietly. "If she hadn't, the surge would have wiped the planet clean." He stared at the data display, the shape of her neural signature faint flickering, but still there. "So she's alive?" he asked. Keller hesitated. "Alive, but fragmented. Her biological systems are non-functional. What remains is her neural data, what you might call her consciousness. It's scattered across the planetary network." He turned sharply. "You mean she's part of the system now?" "Yes," Keller said softly. "The Valkyrie network survived in fragments, and it's evolving." Steele clenched his fists. "Then we bring her back." Keller shook her head. "That network is half organic, half machine. Any attempt to interface could kill you." "Doc," he said, voice hard as steel, "she already risked everything to save us. I'm not leaving her behind in the dark." That night, Steele sat alone in the dim glow of the med bay. Around him, the faint hum of stasis pods and the steady beeping of life monitors blended into a mechanical lullaby. He pulled a small silver chip from his vest, the last fragment of her armor salvaged from the ruins. On it, faint traces of her energy pattern still shimmered. "You told me once," he murmured, "that the armor made you less than alive. Guess now it's all I've got of you." He inserted the chip into his neural interface port. A surge of static filled his vision, and then faintly he heard her voice. "Stephen?" His heart froze. "Nixara, you shouldn't be here. I came to bring you home." "I don't have a home anymore. I am everywhere." Her voice was layered, fragmented, coming from every direction at once. He saw flashes of light, the ruins, the freed Valkyries, the network itself like veins of blue fire beneath the planet's surface. "The network is changing," she said. "The Scourge are trying to reassert control. They've merged with Alara's consciousness. She's their new queen." Steele's blood ran cold. "You mean she survived?" "Not as you remember her. The Scourge absorbed her body and mind. They're coming, Stephen. For all of us." "How long do we have?" "Hours." The human fleet mobilized immediately. In orbit, cruisers and dreadnoughts aligned into defensive formations as swarms of Scourge ships emerged from slip space, black writhing vessels shaped like living things pulsing with bioelectric veins. On the surface, awakened, Valkyries formed ranks beside human troops. Their armor no longer gleamed with obedience. It pulsed with individuality, colors, and patterns unique to each. Steele stood at the forefront in full combat gear, his helmet retracted, eyes locked on the horizon. Above, lightning split the skies as the Scourge descended. Their hive mind chorus echoed across all frequencies, a song of assimilation. "Join us. Merge with us. We are the evolution of all life." Steele spat into the dirt. "Yeah, then evolution's about to get punched in the face." The battle began with fire and fury. Plasma storms raged across the wasteland as Valkyries and humans fought side by side, their combined arsenal, a storm of light and death. The Scourge moved like liquid nightmares, tendrils of living metal devouring everything they touched. Nixara's voice echoed in Steele's mind, guiding him through the chaos. "Left flank collapsing. Redirect the walkers. They're targeting the neural hubs beneath the ridge." He obeyed instinctively. It was like she was there beside him again. But above the battlefield, something vast moved, a colossal ship, its surface alive with shifting patterns. At its center glowed a pulsing sphere of blue energy, the merged consciousness of Alara and the Scourge. Come to me, Nick Sara Viel, the voice boomed across every comm channel, both digital and psychic. You freed them. Now join me and I'll show you what freedom truly means. The ground trembled as the hive mind projected an energy pulse that sent hundreds of soldiers to their knees, clutching their heads. Stephen Nixara's voice said strain, she's reaching into the network. She's using me as the conduit. Then cut the link. If I do, she'll destroy what's left of the Valkyries. Then what the hell do we do? You find me. Steele commandeered a drop shuttle and dove straight through the chaos. Explosions streaked the sky as Valkyrie fighters clashed with Scourge drones. He piloted through fire and debris until the massive organic ship filled his view, its hull pulsing like a living heart. He crashed into one of its outer hives, blasting his way through walls that bled dark fluid when struck. The interior was a nightmare of biology and machine tendrils of living code crawling along the walls. And then he saw her. At the center of the hive stood Nixara, her body no longer entirely physical, her form flickering between light and substance. Blue energy pulsed through her like veins of electricity. Alara's inside, she said. She's trying to override my consciousness. I can't hold her much longer. He approached carefully. Then we end this. Together. From the shadows, Alara emerged, or what had become of her. Her shape was humanoid, but her skin shimmered like liquid chrome, her eyes twin stars of burning white. Human, she hissed, always interfering. You could have joined us. Instead, you cling to chaos. You mean free will, Steele said, raising his weapon. Yeah, I'm a fan. Alara extended her hand and the weapon disintegrated in his grip. Your kind spreads like a virus, always resisting order, always choosing pain. Nixara stepped between them, her voice trembling. Because pain reminds us we're alive. And being alive means we choose who we are. She reached toward Alara, not in anger but compassion. You could have been more than this. Alara screamed, striking out with a surge of energy that sent Nixara sprawling. The hive shook violently as neural lightning filled the chamber. Steele rushed forward, catching Nixara before she hit the ground. Stay with me. Stephen? I can end it, she said weakly. If I merge with her, I can destabilize the hive mind. No, you'll die. You already said I wasn't just a machine. Let me prove it. She looked at him one last time. Thank you for seeing me. Before he could stop her, she turned and leapt into the storm of light, colliding with Alara's form. The explosion was silent, an implosion of energy that folded space around them. For a moment, the world went white. When the light faded, the Scourge fleet above began to collapse, ships falling from orbit, their biosystems failing. The hive network dissolved in a cascade of energy that swept across the planet, wiping out every trace of their control. Steele stumbled out of the wreckage covered in ash and blood. The battlefield was silent but for the wind. He fell to his knees. Nixara? There was no answer, only the faint hum of the wind across the glassed plain. Then faintly his comm crackled. Stephen? His breath caught. Nixara. Where are you? Everywhere, she whispered. The network lives, but I am part of it now. He closed his eyes, tears mixing with dust. I'll find a way to bring you back. Maybe one day, but for now, remember me. Her voice faded soft and sure, because I remember you. That night, under a sky reborn with stars, the freed Valkyries gathered around the ruins of the hive. Steele stood before them, holding Nixara's insignia once more. She fought for all of you, he said, not as a weapon, as a person. She gave you what no commander ever did, your choice. And in the silence that followed, 1,000 armored figures bowed their heads in respect. Above them, the shattered moon reflected the light of dawn, and somewhere in the ether, a familiar voice whispered proud and warm, You did it, daughter. 6 months after the Battle of Aerodani, the stars no longer bled red. The sky was clear again, pale violet by day, deep indigo by night, and the twin moons glowed like watchful guardians over a world reborn. From orbit, the planet no longer looked like a grave. It looked like a promise. The capital, once reduced to molten glass and wreckage, was rebuilding. Gardens grew in the shadow of shattered towers. Children's laughter echoed across plazas where soldiers once marched. And in the heart of it all stood the new Aerodani Diplomatic Center, a sleek structure of mirrored metal and living crystal, half human design, half Aerodani artistry. It shimmered like hope itself. On its topmost balcony stood Captain Stephen Steele, now Major Steele, his uniform immaculate, his hair touched with silver at the edges. He looked older, not from years, but from memories. He wasn't a soldier anymore. Not really. He was something rare, a survivor who remembered why they'd fought. Behind him, soft footsteps approached. Major Dr. Keller said gently, handing him a datapad, "We've finished the Valkyrie deintegration procedures. Out of the 312 survivors, 207 chose to return to biological form. The rest have opted to remain hybrid, part machine, part memory. They call themselves the Resonance." Steele smiled faintly. "They'd hate being told what to be. Nick Sara would have loved that." Keller nodded. She'd be proud of them. He looked out at the city, the rebuilt skyline reflecting sunlight like broken glass turned to diamonds. "She'd be proud of you, Doctor." Keller's eyes softened. "You still hear her, don't you?" Steele didn't answer immediately. Instead, he pulled a small cube from his pocket, translucent, blue glowing, faintly with neural energy. "She's in the network," he said quietly. "Every time we activate the planetary defense grid or open a relay channel, her signature appears for a moment. Just a flicker. But it's her." Keller smiled. "Ghosts in the machine, huh?" He looked at the cube. "No. Guardians in the light." That evening, Steele wandered through the reconstructed gardens outside the diplomatic complex. The air smelled of rain and life, a rare thing on Eridani. Everywhere he looked, people were living again. Eridani civilians rebuilding homes, human engineers assisting them, even children chasing drones that now carried flowers instead of weapons. At the garden's edge, a memorial stood, a monolith of black crystal inscribed with 2 languages. "To those who became more than their programming. To those who chose to be free." Below it, one name glowed brighter than the rest. Nick Sara Viel, Unit 7. He touched the name, his reflection shimmering over the glass. "You saved them all," he whispered, "but it still feels empty without you." "Then stop talking to ghosts." The voice was faint but unmistakable. He froze. "Nick Sara, you always were terrible at letting go." He turned, scanning the empty garden. "You're in the network." "Yes, but not just as data anymore. The integration stabilized. I've learned to exist differently." Her voice carried a warmth he hadn't heard since that last night. "You built a world where we can finally live not as weapons but as people. That's what I fought for." He swallowed hard. "Then come back. Let me bring you out. We can rebuild a body." "No, Stephen." The tone was gentle but final. "My place is here. The network is more than code now. It's a living web part, biological part, synthetic part, soul. I can help guide them, keep them safe. Think of me as the planet's heartbeat." He exhaled slowly. "That sounds like something my father used to say about soldiers we die so the world can breathe." "Then breathe for me." For a long moment, neither spoke. The wind stirred the leaves. A child's laughter rang somewhere in the distance. Then softly she said, "You still carry the insignia." He looked down at the small silver emblem on his chest. "Yeah, can't quite let it go." "Good, because I'll always be with you when you wear it." The cube in his hand glowed brighter for a moment, a pulse of warmth against his skin, and then dimmed, settling into a faint, steady rhythm, like a heartbeat. Weeks later, the Human Eridani Alliance Charter was signed. The ceremony was simple but profound. No banners, no parades, just a gathering of leaders and survivors beneath the open sky. Major Steele stood behind the podium representing the Earth Defense Force. His speech was brief, unpolished, unfiltered, human. 6 months ago, he began, "We fought a war not just against an enemy, but against what we were becoming, whole programmed, obedient to fear." He paused, scanning the crowd of humans, Eridani and freed Valkyries. "We won because one of them remembered something the rest of us forgot, that freedom isn't given. It's chosen, even if it costs everything." He looked up at the clouds, voice softening. "Nick Sara Viel taught me that." The crowd fell silent. The wind carried his words like prayer. That night, long after the ceremony ended, Steele returned to his quarters overlooking the city. The lights below flickered like constellations reborn. He sat by the window, the neural cube resting in his palm. "You hear that, Nix?" he murmured. "They're rebuilding, and I think, maybe I am too." For a while, there was only silence. Then a flicker of light across the cube. "I never doubted you." He smiled, eyes misting. "Still watching me, huh?" "Always." He leaned back, letting the sound of her voice wash over him, a voice made of light and memory, yet somehow more alive than most people he'd ever known. You once told me humans are defined by their chaos, she said. Maybe that's what makes you beautiful. You find order in it anyway. He chuckled softly. You sound almost poetic now. Guess I learned from the best. Outside, the twin moons rose higher, casting silver light through the window. It shimmered across his face and the neural cube alike. For a moment, it almost looked like she was standing there, a silhouette of light beside him, her eyes calm, her presence both alien and familiar. He didn't move, didn't breathe, just felt. Rest now, Stephen, she whispered. You've earned it. He closed his eyes, the sound of her fading like the echo of a heartbeat. Years later, travelers who visited Eridani told stories of a world where cities sang, where gardens bloomed with faint blue light, where every network hum felt like the pulse of a living soul. They said the planet itself was alive, watching, listening, protecting. And when the wind blew through the rebuilt capital at night, it carried a whisper that every soldier, every engineer, every child eventually learned to recognize. A voice soft, steady, and unmistakably human. Remember who you are. Epilogue. On the 15th anniversary of the Alliance, a statue was erected in the heart of the capital, a tall silver monument depicting two figures standing back to back, a human soldier and a Valkyrie with open arms. At the base, a single inscription: she was forged to fight, but she chose to feel, and in doing so, she taught the galaxy how to be alive.